United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody to the 1 o'clock or slightly thereafter 1 o'clock, November 7th, general meeting of the Southampton Town Board of Trustees. I will ask the Secretary Treasurer to call the roll, please.
Scott M. Horowitz, President.
I am present.
William Pell, Secretary Treasurer, present. Edward J. Warner.
Present.
Ann Walker.
Here.
And William Parrish.
Present.
Okay, and welcome to the people that we have here on the Zoom video conferencing. I would just like to let everybody know that our next work session is scheduled for November 21st at 9:30 a.m. here at Town Hall. And our next general meeting will be on the same day, November 21st, 2022, but that starts at 1 p.m. We do have some communications that have been sent to all of the board, and I would like a motion to dispense with reading of the communications.
I'll
Since everybody
second
got
it,
this in their
Scott.
packet. Seconded, Trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Everybody's received this in their packets or their boxes, and they can review that and go from there. We do have some discussions on. Our first one is about the 2023 trustee budget presentation. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Bill, or?
All the trustees got a copy of the tentative budget for next year. Pretty much we're going, it's still staying the same. Anyone has any questions on it?
No questions. I know that at times, we have to, it's a trust fund, so we do like to have some kind of a roadmap, and that's what this budget is, but just like this year, we had to go back and infuse more capital in from fund balance because
You were
of,
correct on that.
right, ramped up legal fees that we had with, lawsuits that we, are working on at the trustees, and, several of our trucks, because they get so beat up, in all the hard work that the marine maintenance does, we had to go back to the well to replace a bunch of
Yes.
our equipment. You kind of.
You always gotta protect the well.
So we had to, and that's why we maintain fund balance, and we're very careful. So I think,
We have to.
I think it's prudent, and I think, that,
I'd like to make a motion to adopt this.
are we up to that schedule, or is it in the further down?
Further down?
We're gonna do the public hearing later today and then
Yeah.
adopt it at the next
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll
I'll
do the
wait
public
then.
hearing first, yeah.
Okay,
So that-
just
so
pushing it.
just making the presentation of it in
Okay.
terms of the discussion. The next on is the 2023 fee schedule.
The fee schedule, we all got a copy of that. We went through it piece by piece, and basically, we're gonna keep all the fees the same. What we did was clean some of the saying up, and we added the fee in for osprey poles. The trustees feel that stuff's already getting expensive in town now, and we want to try to keep it how it is.
Anybody else?
Do you have any other questions on it?
No, I think the Osprey program is a great program.
Yes.
And I'm glad we're adding it to the list of things that we do as trustees. We've worked hard in, putting up many of these nesting sites, poles throughout the area. Been very, very successful because of the water quality in the bay that has gotten much better. Lots of bait fish, specifically bunkers. So I think it's everything is starting to turn the tides in our bays, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes, last month, our maintenance crew, which did a wonderful job, put up 3 new osprey poles, one in Willie's Pond, and one in Sponic Bay, and one in the Sponic Inlet, by the inlet, by that old gray boat that's anchored there,
Yes.
where the osprey's been making the nest on it, so we hope they'll make the nest on the, so the raccoons won't get it.
And I asked them to move the one osprey nest that we have placed at the Parks Department on the canal and move that down to Middle Pond when they get a chance. They're gonna do that this winter, so there'll be a nice spot down there, so we'll have
Yeah.
lots of poles ready for the ospreys when they come back to
The
nest.
the one we put in, actually in Bull's Head Bay, you can hopefully see it from the 2 roads, from the boat ramp and the road going on to National Golf Course, so people can actually watch it.
Oh, good.
So get you back on the course with the fee schedule. The trustees, and I think you all recognize the cost to the general public that we have here. Simple things like gas and home heating, oil, diesel, fuel, food to go eat is all quite substantially higher. And we run as tight a ship as we possibly can here, to keep people on the waterway and, keep public access open for people to enjoy the beaches. And, so we'll hold the line on this for now and,
Yes.
and try and, just memorialize all the good work that the trustees do and just, and just keep things kind
Yep.
of status quo, right?
Yes.
Other discussion that we really need to have is about the draft work session and meeting date schedule. Everybody has a copy of that in their packet. I think that Jessica Feldman did a fabulous job at putting this
Yeah.
together.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's sometimes trustees have, some conflicts. They have things that they have to do, but we still need to run on a schedule. And I know Jessica spent a bunch of time working this thing out, and everybody has to plan, whether, it's for vacations or, the applicant's agents need to be able to know, where they're going when they're working on shepherding through projects for their clients. This way, it's all set. The public also has the dates.
And I'm very glad that Jessica put in lunch break for us.
Of course, we never get lunch break, right? It's always working. The trustees are all losing weight because we're really not eating lunch. But yeah, good job, Jess, and I guess we'll
Thank
adopt
you.
this a little later, so
Thank you.
you did a nice job on this.
Yes, thank you.
One question. Do we get sworn in? So I'm looking and seeing that the org meeting isn't until January 9th.
Yes.
So there's a swearing in that'll take place previous to that, or?
We generally will get sworn in like
Yeah, we-
immediately, okay? That way we can act, immediately. But then you have, the official org meeting for the board to set different things. But in terms of being able to act as an elected official, you still sign the book with the town clerk or, and make sure that's done immediately, just as a matter of proper procedure and protocol. But then, we move on from that, so that'll be a standard.
And the town clerk's very flexible.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
been
great.
Very good on
She's great, yeah. Yeah, she's gonna get Town Clerk of the Year
New
award.
Year's Day,
Yes.
Yeah,
having us sworn in.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
absolutely.
Got a council flow of people out of our house that day.
Yep.
Absolutely. So we do have a public hearing on, and it's for the purpose of converting the 2023 Board of Trustees tentative budget to the preliminary budget, and then to schedule a public hearing. So I will make a motion to open that public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we've all had copies of it and able to, look at it, so I think, I'm good with it.
Okay, so is there a motion to make this,
Is there anyone on
just-
Zoom?
So just to be clear, the date of the public hearing will be?
For the budget?
Mhm.
It's today.
today?
Today.
So we're gonna
Right now.
convert our tentative to our preliminary, and then when we adopt it, it becomes our budget,
Yes.
Okay.
okay?
Charles,
So-
is there anyone on Zoom for the public hearing for
Anybody
the
want
budget?
to comment on our public hearing? Sir, any comments on the public hearing?
There's people on.
Did they want to comment on our,
I see no hands though.
okay. Want
Thank
to
you,
make a
Charles.
contribution, or? No? All right, so is there a motion to,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
okay, so motion made by Trustee Warner, seconded by Trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I just have a question for the trustees. I'm just confused by number one on the agenda. This was on for a public hearing today to convert the trustees' tentative budget for 2023 to a preliminary budget,
Right, so that's.
and then to schedule a public hearing at some date in the future?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll,
Okay.
so now our tentative is now our preliminary, so now we'll schedule a hearing on our preliminary budget.
So, yeah, the wording is confusing, that's what
Gotcha.
was
It's just
confusing
a-
me. Yep.
I think this is the only public hearing
Yeah,
on the
that's all.
budget.
That's all we have.
Well, that's
The
really my
language
question.
is confusing, and it's
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it
we're
Because if
running
we're
on-
setting a public hearing, we have to abide by the rules and regulations for public hearing.
the public hearing
and
was
our-
set at the last meeting.
We're set.
Okay, then we shouldn't say and scheduled for public hearing, because we're not scheduling this for public hearing, and
Unfortunately, that's the only way that Minute Track, the program that we use, will, whoever drafted the public hearing notice, that's how it was written. And then when it goes to public hearing, it takes that same language from the notice and puts it in the public hearing.
So we need to adopt
It's
the
always
budget.
been this way. I
Right.
don't know if there's any way to change it.
yeah, just,
I can
I'm
look
just
into
want
it
to
for the
clarify for
future.
people
Yeah.
listening that there's not going to be another public hearing
No.
at some
I'm
set
sorry,
date
that's
in the future.
confusing.
Yeah,
Yes.
This
no,
is the
we,
formal public hearing.
right.
Right.
We're converting a tentative budget to our preliminary budget, and when it's adopted, it'll be our budget.
Right.
And as we prior discussed, in the event that we, something egregious occurs and we need to go back to fund balance and transfer that in, that will be done publicly by resolution to the proper GL code and then dispersed to the, the law firm or the truck dealership or whatever it is that the need is for. So it's all a public, transparent action, right?
Through the comptroller's office.
Through the comptroller's office, because we do work with the same comptroller that the town board uses, so we're just following protocol here. All right, so are we all in favor of making the tentative the preliminary?
Yes.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we had a motion, we had an acceptance. Public portion, is there anybody here or on Zoom that would like to address the board for 3 minutes for any topic that's not on the agenda for today, or not a permit? Anything whatsoever, 3 minutes to address the board, concerns, issues? Anybody on Zoom? Put your hand up if you want to address the board today.
Yeah, I have
In
one.
public portion,
I have
Greg.
one.
Is it gonna come on this TV or that TV?
Hi, this one.
This one? There you go.
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Tiffany Gavin?
Hello? Yes.
Hello?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Tiffany.
Keep going.
Hey.
Keep speaking.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you
Yes.
now. We can hear you now.
The 65 Cliff is on the agenda. Should I speak now or wait until Ms. Welker?
Well, if it's something that's specifically on the agenda, then that's what that's for.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will wait.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is for things that are not on the agenda.
Got it. We'll wait.
All right.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. Is there anybody that's got something that's not on the agenda, not a permit, something not on the agenda?
I guess you can continue.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Charles.
All right, so we've got applications for permits. The Board of Trustees hereby waives a public hearing on the following applications because it has been determined that the following projects do not raise a significant degree of public interest or public input is not needed to aid the decision-making process. I have trustee resolution 2022-290. It's the application of 15 Ogden Lane LLC, care of David and Christina Kepner. Suffolk County Tax Map Number 902-14-1-22. This has been worked on by the board through various work sessions, and I recommend its approval.
Second.
Seconded trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-291, renewal, the first renewal of Atterbury Hills Landowners Association, 48 Westway Drive, Shinnecock Hills, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-233-2-35, body of water, Shinnecock Bay. We have previously approved this. I recommend that we do it again. It meets all the standards as far as Blue Book and everything. So I need a second.
Second.
Seconded trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Resolution 2022-292. This is a first renewal for the application of permit number GP 000-335, 65 Cliff Drive LLC, 65 Cliff Drive, Noyak, New York. Suffolk County Tax Map 900-9-1-18.1. It's a body of water in Dug Canal off of Sag Harbor Cove. I'm just
Yeah.
going to read this into the record.
Yeah, and I think there was some commentary relevant to this as well.
So do I read it into the record?
In
In what
It's up to you.
order?
Would you like to get the commentary since you have public that is
Sure,
on the Zoom before you read it in?
that's fine.
Charles, you let Tiffany Gavin in at this point since we're working on 65 Cliff.
She's in.
Good afternoon, all.
So is this
Hope all
3
is well.
minutes?
Yes.
Of comment?
I'm
Well-
well aware of the timing.
Yeah.
This is low tide yesterday. The remediation
Put that
had
back up.
not begun of the canal at 65
Can you put it
Cliff
up
Drive.
again?
Excuse me?
Can you put it up again?
We could not see it.
Oh, sorry. This is the mouth of the canal, 65 Cliff Drive. Let me set the next one. We understand this was a two-step process. The DEC violations took care of the first one to contain the land. Now begins the dredging, which I'm seeing that they now have a permit up for renewal. They were able to somehow get it together enough to ascertain getting the bulkhead installed, but somehow neglected in that timing to get a dredge permit to remediate us. We had been living with this for 3 years, and now with a renewal of an application, they're going to be granted 1 more year time, further impacting this canal to these harms that we have been living with for 3 years.
All right.
I'm not really sure why they're granted this approval of timing. The impacts are ongoing. The violations from the DEC gave them a deadline of November 15th. There is no deadline from the trustees to have clean up what is causing harm to our canal.
Okay, Mark, you want to address that? McRedmond?
I can't on 65 Cliff due to my employment with the town. I'll have to defer to Mr. Lombardo.
We were trying to get in front of this. We do not work for 65 Cliff. I know it does look like that because the only improvements so far that have come of our 3 years of presenting this problem is getting them a bulkhead put back on their property. We are begging to be remediated from the material that has fallen in that canal.
Right, but let's,
50 cubic yards only was enough to backfill a low sill bulkhead at 90 feet in length with 4 inches below the top
so,
of that cap.
oh, right, but let's just back up for a second, because I know this has been, quite a problem. So this is the permit that was to get, like you pointed out, it's a 2-step process. So you're trying to combine steps 1 and step 2, right? But this application is not combining step 1 and step 2. This is a first renewal of the application for step 1, right? So we can't amend this permit. There's nothing we can do with this
There's
permit.
nothing to amend. It's-
Right, so we have to issue this permit, and it's a second action, and then you have pending litigation relative to this, as Mr. McRedmond had pointed out, right? So we can't amend this permit.
No.
No, we have to renew this permit, and then this second permit, there was a permission granted to achieve another permit for dredging of this area, right? Trustees granted permission for dredging of this additional area. Is that correct?
On your permits, Mr. Horowitz, it says a 12-foot wide channel down to -1 foot at mean low water.
Right. But this
adequate-
is not, but hold on, let me just stop you. This is not a ratification or an inspection. This is just the granting of a permit for actions that are occurring, okay?
Well,
This
nothing
is not an
occurred.
inspection, it's not a certification, it's not a compliance certificate, it's nothing of the sort. This is a permit allowing for an action to be taking place. So what is it that, there's nothing I can do with this permit.
No, you need
permit
a
that
permit
is
in place. You need a permit in place to be able to take care of it. If it needs to be renewed, then it needs to be renewed.
Right, so there's nothing that I can do with this permit. What is it that you want me to do with this permit?
Well, I would like you to refer to the wording on the permit. A reclamation dredge shall be performed to reestablish an adequate tidal flow of the canal. Specification shall be at least 1 foot lower than mean low water mark and be
But,
12 feet wide
So-
and shall extend at least along the
Okay.
entire length of the bulkhead and shall be subject
Okay.
to modification upon trustee inspection.
Right, okay.
As set forth
right,
in
but,
DEP permit.
okay, so
They need this to do that.
stop right there. Exactly. They can't do anything without this permit from our board. In other words, in order for that to occur, they have to have this permit.
Okay, so
Right,
this
so-
permit,
Yeah? So the
This
permits are
permit-
good for 1 year and renewable for 4 more years, right?
so we're
So this is according to this paperwork, the first renewal of that permit. So to your point, if that was going to occur, they couldn't do that without this permit. If they were gonna take any of these actions, this 12-foot, whatever it is, 12-foot wide by 1 foot, if they were gonna do any of that, if they did it without this permit, they'd be in violation.
Right.
So in order to keep them in violation, if they're going to do this, this is not the compliance, this is not an inspection, this is not a certificate of anything. This is the granting of a permit to take an action. Okay, so this is,
So what is this permit on their house right now?
The 3 minutes is up.
that's the same, is that the same permit as this?
Yes.
That's the same permit, this is the renewal of that permit.
Okay, why wasn't the work done in a timely manner, like the DEC ordered a timeline of a deadline?
What the DEC may issue and what we
That's
put in our
not,
permit are two different animals,
that's-
but we don't have the
Okay, so are
authority
we
to.
saying we're gonna give them 4 more years of leaving that upland in the canal?
If you don't renew it, they're not going to be able to do anything. So
Correct.
what do you want? Do you want remediation or do you want a pound of flesh? Because if you want a pound of flesh, you're not gonna get it. That's,
I don't want a pound of flesh, I just don't want, we're being told to give them a cubic yardage that will remediate and open up tidal flow and navigation.
Okay.
Now, we're hearing and understanding from us ascertaining permits on our own properties that we could renew these permits up to 4 years.
Correct.
That is giving a clearance to 65 Cliff developers to just extend and extend and extend.
but their orders came from the state of New York, right?
Well, what do your orders say, 12 foot down to -1
No,
foot?
It doesn't have a
that's not
time
an
frame
order. Yeah,
attached to it,
exactly,
though.
exactly. This is a permit giving them an authority. Theirs is different. Theirs had a deadline. Ours doesn't have, ours is not attached that way. Ours,
if the DEC is mandating that they perform an action, the DEC has that authority. We're giving a property owner permission to do something. We're giving you permission to do something. We're giving your neighbors. We're giving 65 Cliff permission. Two different animals. They may both be called permits, but the DEC permit has an enforcement mechanism attached to it. Ours do not.
Well, this is what we were trying to get in front of for 3 years.
no.
It was always a two-step process, and now we're being told we're still going to be kept informed.
Well,
There's a lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly.
And by threatening litigation or putting it onto the road for litigation, I have to tell you that you also run the risk of putting brakes on any speed that may happen. So
But this
it's
already,
it's a two-edged
We
sword
were
to me.
told by the trustees we had to.
but there's already, hold on,
Yeah,
time out.
but they haven't filed suit yet, so the point is.
No, there is suits already filed.
Has it been?
No,
Okay,
time
I
out.
knew there was a notice of claim.
Time out. He had to recuse himself because the town's being sued because, whatever, we won't discuss that. It puts everybody, but the bottom line is, in order for this to move forward, to get step 1 done, this permit had to be issued.
Right.
To get that shoreline stabilized so that the next action, whatever that may be, but what you're doing is you're trying to combine things here. We can't combine these things, okay? And we have no choice but to issue this permit so that when whatever happens with this litigation that Mark had to recuse himself from occurs, there's an authority from the trustees to take that action. But we can't combine all of this, but this has to happen. If we don't issue this, that then creates a problem, okay? So you have pending litigation. I think you need, the council to work their way through that, but yet when that happens, the state will have their say in it. We've already given our say that we're good with what you do. And we've given permission for additional dredging to occur on our bottom, if I recall, right?
Yes.
So,
12 feet down to 1 foot on your permit.
but we issued a second per letter of permission for that area, didn't we? Yes?
A second letter?
Yes,
beyond
we
what
offered
the
a
permit-
second letter of permission for that area for a greater amount to be dredged through, I thought, another permit applicant requested permission in behalf of your community to do further dredging in the area.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We had to apply to try and
Correct.
relieve ourselves
Correct, so the
of the harm
trustees-
that 65 Cliff has caused us.
Right,
Yes,
so the
we had to get in
trustees-
front of the problem.
Right, so the
Yes.
trustees have already agreed to that, right? We've already issued our consent for that. And we're issuing our consent for this to be done on this permit. The other stuff and who pays and, you know, all this stuff, that's gotta be settled between those parties and the state. But this action is necessary to allow this work to be done, and we've issued the consent for the other work to be done. So we're in lockstep with providing the permissions that this board has to provide for all of that to be done, but that course has to take its own direction, okay? It has to run its own course, that has to take its own direction. Mark can't even speak to it, he's recused on it because of conflict of interest. But we need to adopt this permit. Right, but this permit is not a certification or a letter of compliance. This is just a permit for an activity to occur.
And when you give that, so they haven't done what's on your permit, the 12-foot wide channel down to -1 foot. So am I understanding this permit that you're going to give them allows them to shirk their responsibilities up to 4 more years?
There is nothing in the permit that mandates an action by a specific date, Tiffany. But without that permit, nothing is going to happen. So however long they take, that is within whatever remedies you may have in court or out of court. But certainly the trustees have removed any roadblocks on their part to allow it to move forward and perhaps get remediated quicker rather than later. But
Exactly.
And we appreciate that, but we're still being told the second step process that we were waiting on, we never were told it could be an additional 4 more years when we've already fought. The DEC put the land containment in place.
Yeah.
okay.
Is there nothing
the way
that
that-
could remediate? The 65 cliff is continuing to harm us.
Right now, the way the process works, an application is put before us, we do a review, we make it into a permit. The resident owner of the property sends that in for basically a notice of commencement. The project is started. They did the bulkhead, they did somewhat of the dredging. Until we get a notice of completion, at that time, we would send James Duryea, our environmental analyst, or someone down there, or George, someone down there from the trustees to look at the situation, look at the area to see if it was in compliance to this permit that we're in the process of renewing for 1 year. Without this being renewed and the project hasn't been completed, they would be in violation. So we're gonna renew it. They're gonna
Thank you.
have another year to be able to do that, the 1 foot deep, 12 foot wide dredging. At that point, once that part of the project has been done, they send a notice of completion in. Then we will send George from our trustee department down there to look at the site to see if it's in compliance. If it's in compliance, we'll give a notice of compliance. If it's not in compliance, then another process will start.
Well, we don't.
But I can't tell you exactly how it's gonna
No,
start right now.
and the bottom line is that if you have a permit for remediation work being done to your property where the canal is, you have that same length of permit life that 65 Cliff has. So there's nothing nefarious in saying that the permit is good for 4 years. That's what happens with these kinds of permits. We do have an expiration, and if there is a need to renew the permit to extend time, we routinely do this because there was a permit in place.
Mr. Lombardo, with all due respect, we all knew where we were heading, and we all knew what we were trying to remediate the environment to have tidal flow and
Agreed.
resume navigation. I'm just flabbergasted that now we're all saying that this is an acceptable situation where we could have gotten in front of this 3 years ago and said, let's try and stop the impaction from enduring, but now we're sitting here and we're just all okay with this developer who has done zero to help that canal.
Well,
Zero.
I think you're making a generalization that everybody is okay with it, but we're trying to move it towards remediation for you and not throw up more roadblocks. If they need to renew the permit, then we have to do what we can to help move that process along for everyone.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you guys are the roadblocks.
Right.
No, but we can be a roadblock which we're removing.
Right.
You may not be happy with 4 years, but we have to remove the roadblock or you've got no years.
Right.
Why
So-
didn't we remove,
This is,
65 Cliff only works under duress. They only work under threat of violation. They only work when they have money attached to it. I understand you don't have the mechanisms to do that.
But the state has already done
But
that.
the state is done what they
Yes.
can do, and if there is a violation of something that the DEC mandated, then you go back to the DEC and you can show me the pictures, I see them, but it doesn't change the fact that there is a procedure you have to follow.
Right.
I-
And the federal level is aware of the situation, the state's aware of the situation. Obviously, we're aware, we've removed any roadblock we can remove by this permit and by the general consent we provided for the remainder of the dredging remediation to that area to be worked on by the community, by the DEC. The trustees have already given that consent. So to Trustee Lombardo, what he's trying to say, we've removed all the roadblocks that we can remove for you. Everybody else has to do their thing, you know what I mean?
God forbid, I don't even agree.
These people have to do their thing, we've done our
They're
thing.
not gonna do their thing. They have showed us what they are capable of and what they're willing to do. They do nothing. I'm just asking, moving forward, I think new laws should be written to get in front of people like these developers. We should not be subject to be burdened for another 4 years because this is how the laws are written. We see the go-around that developers could do. We see what they have done. $30,000 in violations from the DEC only got them to act.
If you,
I understand.
right, if you
respectfully,
take a
Mr.
look,
Lombardo,
if you take a look at the
100%.
amount of manpower, women power, and taxpayer revenue, and that, you know, that's been spent in trying to, you know, right a wrong, so to speak, or remedy this situation, we've all spent, you know, hours and hours and hours of time at our level. And again, these actions require several regulatory authority approvals. We've expedited ours to the best that we can for shoring up that area and clearing the path so that you have the consent, whoever needs that consent, to do whatever additional dredging they need to do. They've gotten that permission. So we got to move this forward. There's no way around it. There's no way around it.
No.
All right, can I just say one more thing, just so we may need to write new laws for the trustees.
We did take into consideration that the town didn't come to us for a demolition permit or no, basically a discussion about removing a trustee structure. I believe we have now put into force a demolition permit for these structures so that there would be
Well,
conversations.
there's certainly,
So, I mean,
But
No,
the authority was there under the Blue Book where there
It
was
was.
a requirement to alter it or.
right, because it
Yeah.
was altered. I
But
think that the communication chain is a little
Yeah.
different now, okay? But the bottom line is the damage has already been done, and it's like we're trying to undo the damage. Some of it's out of our control. I know you want us to, we're limited in what it is we can do for you, and I know you have counsel. And they need to do, our own assistant town attorney sitting at the end of the table here can't say anything because of a conflict of interest situation. So we're doing what we can to remedy this scenario, but it involves other parties that have to take action.
We're depending on the parties that caused the problem to begin with. Forgive me if I have zero respect for 65 Cliff coming to the aid of helping us at this point.
Well-
I have zero confidence in that.
I-
But in 4 years, or in 1 year, when the cubic yardage is different, so now we're having First Coastal get new hydros and new tacos, and if they let it go on another year, are we gonna have to go back? Because the impact is going to be, it's not remediated, so it's still growing. The harm is still being impacted because the material is still in here. The shoal and the landslide are now one. It's not an immutable situation here.
Right.
It gets hit by the Sag Harbor Cove littoral drifts, and it gets hit by stormwaters. It's impossible that a low sill bulkhead is able to contain the same height of material. We know all this. So are we gonna be here next year saying, well, X cubic yards that Aram took in 2022, those are no longer viable. So
Okay,
are
but
we
we're
subject to
speculating, we're
this?
speculating as to what's going to happen a year from now, Ms. Gavin. I can't speculate. If I
Correct.
could, I'd go buy a Powerball ticket.
Oh, that's a
So,
good idea.
You know,
You're correct,
All right.
but history dictates.
Look,
My
we're limited in what we're going to accomplish here today relative to this, okay? Because to remedy any of this, it requires this permit, which they have asked to renew, which we're gonna grant, so we can move to the next step here. The rest of this, I think your council is working on, right, Mark? I mean, council is working on things here.
We should not be having to lawyer up to take care of such an egregious act by a developer and a town employee.
Right, let's get some other people that maybe have their hand up.
Please. I'm annoying myself at this point, I agree. Well, beating myself, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Ms. Brody.
I'm curious as to why there is no time of the essence on the permit, and why another year or 4 years will be allowed when the life of the canal and the shell life and the clams and mussels are being killed off each time there is no tidal flow. Is there not any time of the essence clause
No.
to your permit?
there are
I
none.
mean, they put the bulkhead up, so why not do the dredging and remediate? You were behind us, and I thank you for being behind us all these.
Right, you're gonna have to, you're gonna
Take
have
that up
to,
with council.
right, your
seriously.
council's gonna have to take that up with the state. They started the enforcement action. They're gonna have to take that up with the state of New York and let them deal with what it is that they wanna do. Let council do that. Our permit is a permission and a grant to take an action on our land, okay? So that shoreline could get shored up back to the best it could possibly, and a permission for dredging to occur and remediation to occur. The other
And
regulatory.
what happens, Scott, when the house is sold and there's a new owner? Which is going to happen within the next 60 days,
Well, if they don't have
if not sooner.
if they don't have a compliance from us, they can't really, the bank would not.
Yeah, the bank is not going to underwrite any
It's an
loan.
all-cash deal, they don't need a
Then-
mortgage,
Well,
they
then,
don't even need a
If
title.
it should happen, we'll all see what's going to
Happen,
happen.
then the new
I
owners,
can't tell you
the
what's
new
going to
the new
happen.
owner's
Yeah,
gonna be
because
liable.
They're
want
gonna
that.
buy a problem with the state. I think you
But if
need.
they buy it with a violation, they buy it with a
Right,
violation.
I think your time is better served with your council dealing with the state of New York, since they took the enforcement action relative to this. We granted the permission for the remediation to occur. They took the enforcement action with the teeth and the penalties. You really need to spend your time with them pushing for that, you know what I mean?
One last question. Under what circumstances are they allowed to renew the permit? Why would they be allowed to renew something that they haven't completed?
That's
Why wouldn't
exactly
they be
why.
allowed?
So they can
Why
complete-
wouldn't
That's
they be
exactly
allowed?
why.
That's the
Yeah.
question.
So they can complete the project.
So they can complete the project. Why wouldn't we allow them to complete the project?
We have to give them permission to complete the project on our bottom lands, and for our permits to maintain consistency in their policy and their terms and conditions. They're issued for a year, and with the full understanding, as you are well aware, to get all the regulatory authorities on board so that a project could actually occur, it sometimes takes years, and that's why we allow for individual renewals. Otherwise, you could never get anything done in the town at all, because it takes too long to get permits from all the needed regulatory authorities. See, you're treating this as if our permit is some type of an enforcement action. It's not. This is a permit, an ability for them to take the action to comply with the enforcement actions of the state of New York, which is why I say your council and yourselves are better off having this conversation with the people that started that, and that's the state. This is the grant allowing them to take the actions from our perspective, the Board of Trustees. You're gonna have to go have a conversation with the state relative to this.
So you're basically, your end is done.
Our end is
Not really done.
not really done, but
No.
done from this perspective in granting the allowance to take and put that bulkhead back. Because if you remember, you were in an area where there was no bulkhead and it was just a continued erosion. Now you have stopped that. And whether or not there's enough material that can go behind really is not germane, because dredging is done in many instances where the spoils go to another site, not to that site. So that's not even a valid issue, okay? The grant has been made, okay, by the trustees for the actions to occur. but the state of New York has to do what they have to do relative to the enforcement action. You have council, and council should do what it is that they have to do in that direction. We're clearing, as Special Counsel Lombardo pointed out, the roadblocks for that to occur as expeditiously as we can. Then they can do what they gotta do.
The fact is, if you have litigation pending, you have the cudgel. We do not have a cudgel. And it may not move as quickly as you'd like, but you do have some force behind you because you are in court.
Right. The trustees ourselves on these issues have been battling things for between 1.5 and 2 decades. Unfortunately, it's a slow process, these situations.
Sometimes.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes. So, that being said, we have no choice but to reissue this permit. Otherwise, when there is the, remediation action or whatever happens with the state, we have to give the allowance as the landowners.
Because if we don't reissue this permit, that gives them the excuse not to do it. If they want, if you
You
want,
turn into it, you
You
mean.
gotta get, we have no choice, we gotta.
you have to do it.
They have
It's like
to-
your permit, you have the option to renew it.
And I'm just worried about when or if the land changes hands, what the
problem-
enforcement
let's take it
will
a
be.
complete-
We have no control of
They buy
that.
it subject to a violation, they buy it subject to any consent agreements that were entered into with the DEC. That's all upfront and known to the buyer. Because when they do title insurance, they'll do a departmental search, and they'll also do whatever searches are necessary, particularly in a case like this. It's a notorious piece of property. Its issues are well-known within the community. All cash or with a mortgage doesn't change it.
Okay,
Notorious.
so I'd like
We have
to.
somebody else?
I'd like
Somebody
to-
else want to jump in here before Trustee Welker finishes her resolution?
Can I just also say, your property is harmed. Is there no impetus for you guys to issue a violation to say it's harmed? And please act in some sort of respectful timeline, 65 Cliff? Is there, it's harmed. I know the town has to approve your violations, but is there nothing that you could issue as a violation to 65 Cliff, saying your upland harmed our bay bottoms, we're issuing a violation? Is that not a tool that we could use to give these people, these developers, the impetus to get us some
Tiffany,
type of flow?
listen, based on the fact that there's pending litigation, based on the fact we've got our assistant town attorney sitting at the end of this, I'm not gonna comment on everything that you're gonna ask because I can't, okay? So, you feel free to ask, but this board cannot respond to every single thing that you're gonna ask. I think that.
But we're not suing the trustees,
I understand that, but.
and it's a notice of claim.
I
So
understand.
really, it's not a lawsuit yet.
I would suggest again, respectfully, ask your attorney. That's what you're paying him or her for.
It's a notice of claim, and you're a separate entity. With all due respect, we should be able to get some answers from you guys. Your problem.
We've given you the most diligent action that we can to remedy this within the confines of the authority and jurisdiction that we have. The state has to be your main thrust here, as they have been, okay? We don't have to go over, everything that led up to that occurring, okay? But I think you have a notice of claim, and you have a group of people with an issue that should be able to resolve it. We're trying to remove any regulatory roadblocks that we can possibly resolve. I know the federal government's looking at this as well. Everybody's communicating. They're doing what it is that they can. We're doing what we can, our part of it, but it requires a lot of other people to do, their part as well.
But
Okay?
we know the DEC is willing to give a dredge permit, we know this. So the parties that we need to do the actual work is 65 Cliff Drive.
You need to speak to your attorney again,
We have,
respectfully.
Mr. Lombardo, with all due respect,
With-
it cost us a lot of money, and we do.
I
And we've
understand,
been
but-
expending a lot of money dealing with something that is basically common sense removal.
Agreed, but the fact of the matter is that you're the ones prosecuting the matter. Speak with your attorney and see what other actions you may or may not be able to do, or to get the answers that you need. We're not the ones that got the notice of claim. You're trying to solve a problem, and We've done what we can to
We're
help.
trying to help you solve your problem.
No, I understand, but why can't you, well, I'm still not understanding why you can't take action to protect your bay bottoms that have been harmed and continue to be harmed by these developers' actions and inactions of the town of Southampton. We're not suing the trustees.
We're going around in circles.
I know. Let's, Tiffany, we gotta get to some other folks, and then we got an agenda that we gotta move on here with you. Who else needs to, address the board? Yes, hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, Joe Velarde.
hello.
53 Cliff Drive. I'm not gonna take up too much more time. Tiffany has definitely stated, and Arlene, all the, the facts and our concerns. But a couple things do bother me to some extent. I mean, obviously everyone knows we're working on the lawsuits, and we're certainly gonna continue and escalate them. But doesn't the town have a dredging budget? I mean, I've been listening to these Zoom meetings for the last 3 years because of this situation. And I seem to remember dredging taking place based on town budgets.
Right.
And a little dredging right now out of that budget would make this all go away probably.
We had that discussion earlier today, and it kind of evaporated, okay? It evaporated. So we had that discussion in work session, if you tuned in there. There was back in the day, but it seems to have evaporated. So that's a town discussion. That would be helpful. We have other areas where there are issues that need to be opened up with harmful algal blooms and so on and so forth. But remember, the trustees aren't, like shoestring budget here, So when these things were, available, it was helpful, but times have changed. We are, plowing a bunch of roads that used to be plowed by the town on roadways that we may or may not even own, but in the interest of public safety, we're doing what we can. But, something like that would be helpful. That's a discussion that you need to have as you filed notice of claim with the town. We have given consent for this to occur, and we're giving further consent for, more activity to occur. And we've been trying, from day one with this, that I got involved to try and remedy this situation. So I think.
And I appreciate that. And we know the trustees, have been on, been helpful in this situation, and we wouldn't have gotten this far probably without you. And I do understand the permit needs to be renewed, and it sounds like the permit is for the property, not the developer or the homeowner.
No, that's correct.
It's the property.
That's
It runs
correct.
with the property,
That's correct.
exactly.
That's correct. And
So,
that
I
you're
think that's
correct.
a good thing, but.
people,
It just seems like, I know I just bought my house, in 2014 and paid the 0.25% to the community, whatever the fund is
Yeah.
called, and it seems like, I think the town realizes that a lot of things went wrong on their part in this, and that there should have been a way to help this go away. It seems like this is just gonna drag on a little
well,
bit, but we're in it for the long haul. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna stop until this is worked out.
we're sitting here with a recused assistant town attorney at the end of the table here, okay?
Yeah.
So, we're grabbing special counsel in here. I mean, it's a tough situation. We've done what we could through a difficult situation. Nobody wants to see harm to the environment. We're trying to foster good relationships and communication with people. I know that in this subject, from the state to the federal government, everybody's aware of what's going on. And, we're the low-hanging fruit here, The state's got a lot more bite and teeth than we have here. And they can do what they gotta do. We've certainly given the consent for that to occur, okay?
Okay,
So,
all right, we'll continue the fight, and we'll, hopefully this will work its way out.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else, ma'am? You wanna speak? Anybody else?
Madeline?
Madeline Van John, you have something to say, or I see you on the screen here?
Hi, no, I don't have anything to say. I'm just here to monitor what's going on after we applied for the renewal. I don't have any comment.
Do you have any update on the property or the dredging?
I mean, right now, the work on the site is in progress, so, I mean, as you can see, the bulkhead was put in, and we're working on things, getting that finished. As I'm sure you're all aware, we just applied for the renewal because we obviously need a permit to remain in place to continue the work and get everything finished.
Right.
We're working on the DEC deadline is November 15th, so we're working on getting everything taken care of for that. And that's all I have to say on that. So we would, of course, you're all aware, as I've heard from your discussion, that we just need the permit renewed in order to continue the work, that's all.
Do you have all your other permits in order for the work to continue?
Yes, we do. We have, the DEC didn't issue a permit, it's just part of their order, but it's, we're doing what.
So you need that you need this to be done for that order to be complete?
Exactly. It's the same, the work's ongoing. We've been operating under your existing permit. We just need it renewed to dot all the i's, cross all the t's, have everything in order to continue work on the site.
And does that order have a completion notice, a time on it?
Yes, under the DEC, our work has to be completed by November 15th.
Yeah,
Right, and as you can hear, the community's still not happy.
all right. Scott?
Okay,
Thank you.
so thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Ms. Van John. So I'd like to recommend that we renew this permit.
I'll second that.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-293, application for 7 Noyak Harbor LLC. We discussed this at work session. It's to replace sections of a bulkhead along with an extensive planting plan. I'd like to recommend the approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-294, application of 34 Maple Lane, Noyak, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-4-1-29.1. This is Noyak Creek. This is for an elevated catwalk with a floating dock. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-295, application of Sunset Point Enterprises LLC, 130 Point Mecox Lane in Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-134-1-7, body of water, Swan Creek. This is for the construction of a catwalk with a floating dock. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-296, application of Flying Point Sands LLC, 1131 Flying Point Road, Watermill, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-178-2-14, body of water, Atlantic Ocean. This is an application for dune restoration and sand placement along with beach grass planting and sand fencing. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-297, application of Caroline Hirsch, 1151 Flying Point Road, Watermill, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-178-2-17.1. As with the previous application, this is for dune restoration with sand placement. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-298, application of CPH LLC, 1175 Flying Point Road, Watermill, New York, Suffolk County Tax Maps 900-179-1-19. This is also an application for dune restoration with sand placement. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
And Trustee Resolution 2022-299, this application of Leonard Holzer, 1177 Flying Point Road, Watermill, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-179-1-20. This also is an application for a dune restoration with sand placement and beach grass planting and sand fencing installation. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2022-300, application of Christopher J. Witt, 125 Temple Avenue, Flanders, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-123-1-5.2, body of water, Reeves Bay. We went in work session with this on several occasions, and I move to have it be granted.
Second.
Seconded trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Next is trustee resolution 2022-301, application of Reeves Bay Marina LLC, 60 Bay Avenue, Flanders, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-147-2-11.1, body of water, Priest's Pond. This is for a cutting of Phragmites along a 10-foot area landward of the existing bulkhead. We had this in work session, and I'd ask that this be approved.
Second.
Seconded trustee Welker, all in favor?
Aye. Trustee Resolution 2022-265, this is to authorize payment for H2M Architects and Engineers for sediment sampling and analysis and environmental services for Fresh Pond Village of North Haven. We remain waiting to hear back from Department of Environmental Conservation so that they would approve this sediment sampling. So I request that we table this.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the next one, we have trustees is hereby authorized to advertise for public bid for the following. Take notice that sealed bids will be received by the town clerk, Southampton Town Hall, on or before Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022, by 2 p.m. It's for the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-250.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Then we have trustee resolution 2022-303, resolution authorizing the president to sign a letter of authorization granting permission to Paul Skopinich for a dredging project for the Smith Creek bulkhead.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Got trustee resolution 2022-304, authorizing the president to sign settlement documents in action Holzer et al. Versus the trustees, index 623487/2019.
Question on the motion. Could you expand on that just a bit?
Mark, you want to expand on this one?
What kind of expansion do you want?
You want to do that, Joe? I'd rather the attorneys expand on it.
Sand placement?
Yeah, I'd rather the attorney expand.
Yep.
And how this all is-
Okay, as you're well aware, there was litigation pending against the town and the trustees involving sand and the area in Mecox that was filed by some property owners. The matter was subject to some ongoing negotiations between the parties and council. The parties have agreed on a settlement, and all that's necessary now is for the authority for you to sign whatever documents are necessary to settle and terminate the action.
Okay, thank you, special counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll make a motion.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee resolution 2022-305, it's a resolution authorizing the taking of sand, 30 gallons of sand are needed for a science project concerning the yellow stingray. And whereas sand suitable for the project can be found at Mecox Beach, and whereas the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of Southampton own the sand on the Mecox Bay side of Mecox, whereas permission from the trustees is necessary to take sand from said beach, now therefore be it resolved.
I'll second that.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye. Trustee resolution 2022-306, budget and financing. Resolution to amend the Board of Trustees fee schedule for 2023. We're putting in aquaculture, commercial 1-year permit for $250, aquaculture non-profit year-round, zero fee, and recreation 1-year permit for $0. We also put in beach placking and osprey poles and a boat ramp. Just clean up the boat ramp fees and cleaning up the fish trap application and the biostain. We're putting other stuff in but there's no fees for it. Just cleaning it up for our office.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Budget and financing for 2022-307 to amend and adopt adopt budget for legal fees. Whereas the addition need to increase the legal fee line to pay the attorneys, whereas the board trustee to addition $100,000 needed to cover outstanding expense, whereas trustees available fund balance is approved for these expense now. Resolve the Southampton Town trustees hereby authorize appropriation funds balance of the amount of $100,000 to be increase the legal fee GL SN-99-8790-00-6430-0000 for $100,000 by the same amount, be further resolved for the 2022 budget, adopted budget, to amend according to the town controller is authorized to make the budget, all budget account entries necessary to execute.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have another general miscellaneous central purchasing and contracts compliance. Trustee Resolution 2022-308 is to award and authorize the president to sign a contract with Gingrich Ford for purchase of a Ford F-150. Whereas on October 3rd, 2022, by resolution number 2022-TRUS-281, the Board of Trustees of the Freeholders and Commonalty of the Town of Southampton, in conjunction with the town clerk, authorized the town clerk to advertise a bid for the purchase of the Ford F-150. We received the bid, opened, read aloud on November 2nd. Bid was reviewed by the trustees and the purchasing agent, and we will now be buying a Ford F-150 for an amount not to exceed $53,358.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Pell, all in favor? We also have another central purchasing and contract compliance resolution, 2022-309. Award and authorize president to sign a contract with Gingrich Ford to purchase a Ford F-350. Whereas on September 26, 2022, by resolution number 2022-TRUS-270, the Board of Trustees of the Freeholders and Commonalty of the Town of Southampton, in conjunction with the Southampton Town Clerk, authorized the town clerk to advertise and bid for purchasing a Ford F-350. Bid was received on November 2nd, reviewed by the trustees and the purchasing agent. It has been determined that the price submitted by Gingrich Ford is comparable to industry standards and the lowest responsible bidder in accordance with GML 103. And based on recommendations of the trustees and the purchasing agent, that we're commencing a contract, and upon being fully executed, we will be getting this Ford F-350 truck.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye. Trustee Resolution 2022-310, Budget and Financing. Warrant number 17 of 2022. Resolved that per the recommendation of review of the comp control, the following vendor payment warrant 17 be approved for the amount of $32,739.04. Warrant 17, $32,739.04. Card member service, $4,033.88. Law office of Con and Con, $27,472. Call ahead, $50. Home Depot credit service, $539.43. Town of Southampton, $300. W.B. Mason, $343.73. Total amount of $32,739.04.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner. All in favor?
Aye, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have, is there something else that's non-executive that needs to be reviewed? By anybody? I know it's been quite a day.
Well, I can
Going
say,
over a lot of stuff.
not a review, but an update. Today's the open day of base golf season in the state and in the town of Southampton.
How's that going?
I don't know, I haven't got any comments yet.
It doesn't sound very
No,
promising.
it doesn't, but we last year we worked with Cornell Cooperative Extension and put 200,000 base golfs in Shinnecock Bay for a restoration purpose. They did not fare very well. They did a couple of dives on them, and there's only, could find about 250 scallops. So they didn't live very well, and I don't know how the recruitment was because I haven't heard of many juvenile buck scallops being in the bay. But I was also contacted by Suffolk County Cornell. They're looking to do shellfish reseeding this year, and on this Thursday, they want to put this oysters and clams in Red Creek Pond. It's one of the only ponds that we have not put shellfish in many years. There is a sanctuary in there that we started with Nature's Conservancy about 20 years ago. So they want to add some of the shellfish to that and put some of the other shellfish in the certified open areas within the pond, and also in Cold Springs Pond, where we have historically put our shellfish in. It's a good area for the recreational people to go in there and harvest, as well as the commercial. The water quality is very well, and maybe we can get an update from our environmental analyst tomorrow on how the scallops fared that they put in there last year.
Okay.
Another update is that they're doing the dredging in Red Creek Pond. It's, I believe, the sixth waterway that we will be getting dredged by the county this fall. And finally, Sylvan and along the canal, they'll be doing dredging later in the season. That should be the final dredging project within the town. So we will have gotten, I believe, 6 or 7 projects done.
I think they're still at Savonic right now.
They're still at Sabonic, but they're heading to Red Creek afterwards. So we have a good working relationship with them. And I was also contacted by Courtney Scott. She's one of the young ladies that had come in and spoke about Fresh Pond and putting the deposition material on the east side of the pond. I'm going to reach out to Scott Hillary by phone because they don't have their email up and running yet because they were hacked, and I'm going to have a conversation with him and hopefully meet on the 28th of this month with some of the residents down there and the association president, Dan Sheridan, to go over possibly using the access point that the association owns and having the material put on some of the properties or near some of these properties on the badly eroded side of the beach of the Fresh Pond.
That's great, Ed.
What about Mecox? Let's talk about Mecox brief.
Okay. So Mecox was opened approximately 10 days ago, and it drained well, not as well as we might have hoped, but it drained well. It has subsequently closed. In preparation for the longer dredge, the contracting company came out and staked the 1,000 feet back and 200 feet wide that runs straight down the center of that area that will be excavated. The sand placement for that will be on both sides, both the east and the west side of that beach area in what we call stockpiles. We are looking, given that there's been significant overwash and that the bay did not drain as well as we might have hoped and that it closed in a fairly short term. We are looking to see what our next steps are. We had a conversation the other day on Friday afternoon with the marine contractors, and we have a scheduled conversation again this afternoon after they looked at the data from the survey that their employees had taken.
Okay, so we'll have more information after that conversation.
Yes, we will.
All right, so let's not delay, because I think that's an important bunch of data that we need, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody's waiting on that.
They also did an elevation of Mecox at that time when they did the survey, and an elevation of the Atlantic Ocean to see what the elevation
Differential
differences
was, yep.
was. And if they can pull it off, they're hoping to bridge out the north side where they're going to be doing the dredging, and then open up the cut and to try to drain that area in between to get out with excavators further where they can excavate down to 4 feet below.
It's quite the project.
It's quite the
Quite the
project.
project.
What is the salinity in it now?
The last salinity was like 5.1, 5.6. I don't know what it is.
low.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
not
it's
good.
pretty
It's
low.
very low.
Yeah.
We need to get this opened up so that we get better flushing.
Yes.
We're moving forward. We had a conversation Friday, we have another conversation today. This week, it's weather, and that was what delayed us from the initial opening as well. We just want everything to line up. Everything that we're in control of, we have lined up, but we just can't control
I mean,
surf and moon
Correct.
tides
Can't
and.
control the weather?
tonight's a full moon.
Yep.
And the tides are 3.4 to 3.5 above
And
normal
below.
high tide, and they're running below, but the high tide, when it's high, and looking into the end of the week here, you're gonna get substantially strong southerly winds with 8 to 9 foot waves. So we're in a holding
It's
pattern
precarious.
discussing, so it's waiting to suit the weather.
Right. All right. Are we good? Anybody else have anything they want to discuss? It's been a heck of a day.
So are
All
we
right.
good putting the clams in Cold Springs in
Yes,
Red
that's
Creek?
always a good idea.
Yep,
Yep.
let's do it.
All right, I'll tell Greg Rivera so he can schedule it on Thursday with the marine maintenance.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion.
All right,
Second.
seconded. Trustee Pell, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Have a nice day, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
That meeting's
All right,
at
Charles.
3:30.
Okay.
So if
We off?
Again. Like,